On this episode of the DTVC podcast, Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl is back, and we're going to be looking at two Michael Jai White movies. We're going to be looking at Black Dynamite and then Outlaw Johnny Black. And just to give you a heads up as well, there are no sort of tangent or like kind of opening discussions like we've done on the past couple episodes where we've sort of talked about comic book movies and things like that. We're currently on a comic book movie hiatus, so Jeanette and I just jumped right into the movie. So talked about Michael Jai White to begin with, and then Black Dynamite, and then Outlaw Johnny Black. So so keep that in mind as well as you're listening here. I think we do have a few tangents at the very end, but not as tangent filled as my episodes tend to be. So just keep that in mind. Though I love talking tangents with Jeanette and everybody else that we have on the podcast. But yeah, this one is a little. This one's lighter on the tangents, just to give you a heads up there. And then next week, John Cross from PM Podcast and After Movie Diner is back. We're going to be looking at two more erotic thrillers. This time we're going to do some Jack Scalia erotic thrillers. So this was an episode idea that was birthed out of us talking about Dark Breed, and we were looking at Scalia's career on IMDb and thought, okay, let's do a couple of these erotic thrillers. So we're going to be doing Deadly Desire and Illicit Behavior. So look for that one next week. And then in 2 weeks, Ty is back on for his monthly spot. It's going to be Rourke to Oblivion. That's what we're going to call it. We're looking at two Mickey Rourke movies. We're going to be looking at Jade and Hunt Club. And then our spotlight on the fight is actually the end fight scene in Tomb Raider, which is a movie I hadn't even seen before. So we didn't mean for it to be kind of a female empowerment type episode. Like we didn't mean, because the two movies that we look at are very female driven, and they're sort of female action movies. And then of course Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie. We didn't plan it out that way, but that's how it worked out. So a very fun episode talking Mickey Rourke with Ty there. So keep an eye out for that in 2 weeks' time. Then DTVC Extra. I don't know if we're going to get anything in the near future here. We'll see. I decided I think I'm going to probably scrap that baseball movie I did just because more and more movies keep getting peeled off of free streamers. But I noticed on Tubi that all of Pam Grier's movies are on Tubi, and that was an idea. Remember in the past I'd had that idea where I was going to look at maybe some of her blaxploitation films from the 70s. But then I did an episode with John from After Movie Diner on his podcast, on the After Movie Diner podcast, where we talked about, I think it was Black Mama, White Mama, and Arena. I think we looked at a couple of Roger Corman ones that she did. And so that ended up kind of pushing that idea aside, but I may come back to that idea. So keep an eye out. We'll see what happens there. But for right now, it looks like the DTVC Extra podcast is going to take a bit of a hiatus. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, and then on the site, this weekend starts our Hall of Fame induction month of October, right? We're already into October, can you believe it? And so, while everybody else kind of does Halloween stuff, and I always thought, I think I have done Halloween stuff in the past, because I don't always do 4 inductees. That seems to be a more recent thing, that each week of the month gets an inductee. But yeah, we're going to have 4 inductees this month, so it's going to take up our whole month. We'll have, this coming Saturday, we'll be looking at Three Musketeers with Cole S. McKay. Cole S. McKay directed that movie, so that's going to be his induction into the Hall of Fame. It's one that Will looked at recently. Will from Exploding Helicopter. If you go on his Blue Sky, he talked about that. That was his 690-something movie that has an exploding helicopter in it that he saw. But that's what we'll be looking at. And then as the month goes on, we'll be looking at Time Bomb for Billy Blanks. We'll be looking at Sanctuary for Imperial Entertainment, and we'll be looking at The Corporate Ladder for Kathleen Kidmont. So those are our inductees this month. So keep an eye out for this month of October as we start inducting our new Hall of Fame members. Yeah, and then the YouTube channel. If you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, we did finally get a new video up. We did the Showdown in Little Tokyo. I didn't know. I made a really long title because I really didn't know how to encapsulate, in a short title. Usually it's like, 2 fight scenes from this movie, or somebody does this or that. And this was kind of like, Dolph Lundgren stops Tia Carrere from Seppuku in Showdown in Little Tokyo. So it's kind of a long title. But yeah, it kind of goes through that whole sequence of him invading the mansion that Cary Tagawa lives in, and then taking out all manner of stunt guys before he saves Tia Carrere from Seppuku. So that's our newest video on YouTube. You can check that out. If you're not subscribed, you should be, so you can catch our most recent videos. Also, it's a place where you can listen to the podcast. If if you don't follow us on any podcatchers, you can listen on YouTube as well. We have all the episodes up there. Usually once they go to Spotify within an hour or two, they end up on YouTube as well. So you can check our podcasts out there as well. I think I'm not going to do another video this week, but probably in 2 weeks' time. But I'm going to keep going with this Showdown in Little Tokyo thing. I'm going to do the bathhouse scene next. I may do the breakfast scene. That's another great one. So we'll kind of keep an eye out for those. But now that I've got this DVD player for my laptop, I can get video of any of my DVDs that I have. So that's always going to be a fun thing. So I'm excited to kind of get into some more of my DVD collection. I mean, Punisher now. Punisher's on the table, the old Dolph Lundgren one. I mean, that could be some stuff in there. I mean, that whole sequence where he's like, killing tons of Yakuza guys. So yeah, maybe I've got to rewatch that one again anyway. So, but keep an eye out. Keep make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel because you never know what we're going to be posting on there. And then I know John was saying, in terms of other stuff that I've done outside of the podcast, John was saying that the episode of the PM podcast that I did with him, the Dark Breed one, that should be up pretty soon. So that was the one we did in honor of Rick Pepin passing away. But yeah, that was a fun movie to talk about. If you haven't seen Dark Breed before, it's on Tubi. It is a really fun watch. So it's one of my favorite PMs. I think I had it number 11 on my top PM list. So it's definitely worth checking out. And Jack Scalia, he gets after it. You got to have Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad. He's in it as well, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So yeah, a ton of fun there. Yeah, I think that's everything. We're almost at 6 minutes, and I think we're ready to call this good. But of course, we cannot get out of here without me telling you to buy my books. My most recent one, Nadia and Aiden, which is almost a year old at this point. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback. The link is in the podcast description. My next novel, Mark in Sales, I'm hoping to have that one out in November. So keep an eye out. That'll be there soon. That book is going to take place in the same world as Chad and Accounting. So if you haven't read Chad and Accounting, my very first book, check that one out too. Again, the link to my author page is in the podcast description. You can click on that. It'll take you to my author page. Any of the book covers, you click on the book cover, it'll take you to where you can buy them. So always appreciate when somebody wants to pick up one of my books. Any of them, they're all, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to say they're good reads. I think they are. But people who read them tell me they enjoy them as well. So it's not just me telling you that I like my own books. Other people like them too. So always appreciate the support. People want to help out and pick up one of the books. Well, all right, yeah, why don't we have John from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song, and then when we come back, Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl is on, and we're going to be looking at Black Dynamite and Outlaw Johnny Black. Hey everyone, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I'm joined by a very special guest. We've got Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl. Welcome back, Jeanette.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Yes. Yeah, in this episode, we decided we're trying to decide what we wanted to discuss for this episode, and we're talking about maybe doing some Michael Jai White, and thought, okay, well, Black Dynamite is a great one. So I haven't seen that one since I reviewed it back in like 2010. And then we thought, well, Outlaw Johnny Black would be a great one to pair for it. So we've got a double feature today of Michael Jai White movies.
Yes. What a treat. So much Michael Jai White in the best possible way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on sort of watching Michael Jai White's career in his movies?
I really enjoy him. He seems to be a guy who is, wait, how can I explain this? He's maybe almost born like 10 years too late. Like he would have been perfect in kind of just maybe a half generation earlier in terms of action stars. But in a way, I'm glad that he wasn't, because then we get him now. He's exceptionally talented martial arts-wise. Really, really great on-screen presence. Maybe hasn't broken as big as some of the others of his like contemporaries, but I think he's also more, in terms of martial arts, more skilled than a lot of the others. And what I love is if you follow him on social media, he will have like some really interesting like tip videos in terms of like, well, if you're throwing a punch, it needs to look like this on screen, or it needs to be like this in real life, or etc. etc. He's also had a couple of videos where he talks about other fighters, like Steven Seagal is one that comes to mind because there's a lot of clips of him talking about Steven Seagal, but in a really unique way where he talks about like his, and you'll have to look him up because it's so fascinating, where he talks about like he's not disparaging Steven Seagal, the movie star, but he does talk about Steven Seagal, the martial artist, as in there isn't really a Steven Seagal, the martial artist. But what he credits is Steven Seagal's, perhaps team's, fight choreography and how it looks great on film. But trust me, look him up. There's a lot of really interesting videos. He's never mean, but he's very clear about where the skill set lies and what looks good on film. And I think that makes a difference when you talk about someone who is taking their martial arts skills and putting them on screen. This is a man who really understands it. This is also a man who understands the blaxploitation films of the 70s and then how to spoof them in the Black Dynamite. And I think I had been aware of him for, because this is my wheelhouse of like, cheesy martial arts action movies. And so I've known of him, and he's had small roles in bigger movies. Like he was in Dark Knight Rises and a couple others. Like he's got small roles, but he had his own like direct-to-video, action movies that are not coming to mind right now. But I've seen a bunch of them. He was also in for a while. Mortal Kombat was a really aggressive mini TV, like YouTube kind of deal, where it was like, let's lean into the hard R of the Mortal Kombat video games before the reboot did that. And he played Jax in those, which was super interesting. So yeah, there's a lot. Like he's got a lot of expertise. And so I think when Black Dynamite first rolled out and I started seeing the ads for it, oh my god, this is genius. And it's because the blaxploitation movies had so much in them. And it's this genre that came out in the 70s of like, essentially black filmmakers were like, we'll make our own movies. What do we like to watch? Well, let's put all of that into these movies. And essentially it's like a local street hero going up against, air quotes, the man. And that could be anyone from people dealing drugs in the community to government to cops to whatever. And the hero can be someone who has a shady background but stands up for the community, skilled in martial arts because why not? And goes on from there. And there's a lot of super notable stars of that era, and goes back to like Shaft, Richard Roundtree, and Rudy Ray Moore, and Dolomite. But Dolomite itself was kind of a spoof of the genre. But then you get into a lot of the stars who came out of the NFL or the football world and stepped into these movies, and so they were shot fast and loose for not a lot of money, and they looked super sketchy, but the stories were clean and simple, and it really connected with the fan base. They're not great quality, but boy, they understand their fan base. And if you need a better understanding of the blaxploitation genre, I think that watching Eddie Murphy's Call Me Dolomite, or Dolomite Is My Name, that's what it is, Dolomite Is My Name, which is Eddie Murphy plays Rudy Ray Moore in the production of the movie Dolomite. And it really gives a perfect explanation of Rudy Ray Moore seeing this genre of movie, knowing he can make this movie, and then how he goes about doing that and leaning into the comedy of it. So I strongly recommend, and honestly, do you need to watch Dolomite first? Yes, it's more fun if you do. Or honestly, watch my Dolomite Is My Name and then watch Dolomite to really get the idea, or to see how lovingly recreated a lot of those sequences were. It's great. So that is where this movie comes from, and Michael Jai White was a huge fan of those films. He has said that he put together a team, put together Black Dynamite, and man, it hits on all cylinders. So I was aware of him before Black Dynamite, but boy, Black Dynamite cemented my appreciation for him.
Yeah, the thing about Michael Jai White, I think two things. I think one, like you mentioned, he's one of the best at mixing the practitioner elements of martial arts with the theatrical elements, and knowing how to make it look great on screen, while being a well-accomplished martial artist. And then I think the other point you make about Black Dynamite that we're going to be talking about here, that he nails better than anybody I've ever seen do these grindhouse type movies, or their take on the grindhouse genre or that kind of thing. He is able to nail the combination of getting what these movies were about, getting also like what the the limitations they had in making the movies. And when he's making jokes about those limitations, he's not making fun of the limitations so much as he's saying, like, these were the limitations these filmmakers had to go through, and we can all have fun with them. It's what made Black Dynamite such a classic for me. I have it as like my number one direct-to-video movie of the 2000s. It is just that good, and watching it again just reaffirmed how much I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that Michael Jai White put together this idea for Black Dynamite and really shot a trailer before having the movie or a script finalized in order to help raise money and get a team together.
Yeah, and one of the things I read was that he came up with the idea for this while he was filming Undisputed 2. And I saw an interview he did with Vlad TV where he talked about the Undisputed series, where when he was signed on for Undisputed 2, he was under the impression that, 3, 4, 5, etc., those would all be his movies. And then what happens is after Undisputed 2 is that, he fights Scott Adkins' Boyka character, and then they decide to, oh no, we're going to pivot and make it about Boyka, and you're out, Michael Jai White. And I do wonder if that was a part of it, because I know, Fred Williamson, part of why Fred Williamson got into directing and producing and doing all that with his own movies is that he wasn't getting the roles he wanted in Hollywood, and he was finding that he was getting stymied at every place. And I'm what kind of feels like Michael Jai White did something similar here, where it's like, okay, you know what? You're going to take the Undisputed series away from me. I got to make my own movie. But he makes it so well. He nails every bit of this that it's kind of one of the things. I mean, this movie should be more of a classic, I think, than it is. I think it's one of those things that everybody should be talking about Black Dynamite all the time, just because he hits all these points so well in this movie. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what was funny in rewatching this, I hadn't seen it in a while. And I think maybe the cartoon, because there was a cartoon on Adult Swim that came out a few years later with the original voice actors. I didn't enjoy the cartoon as much because it was just so far out. They fight a lot of, there's like aliens with it. It's layered. But it was really fun rewatching this. And then to pair it with Outlaw Johnny Black, like we can talk about in a bit, but man, I just really had a strong appreciation for Black Dynamite and how you really, in order to make a good spoof movie, you really have to have a deep understanding of the genre you are spoofing.
Yeah, and there's things that he does in Black Dynamite that I think I've seen others sort of like these grind like there's a movie Jade that came out recently that Ty and I talked about on a podcast about Mickey Rourke with Shayna West, where Shayna West is fantastic in it. But when the movie's trying to bring in these grindhouse elements, they do kind of it's kind of this everything but the kitchen sink approach that I feel like doesn't get what these movies were about. And Michael Jai White gets it. So when there's boom mics just kind of throwing in all over the place, it's not like he's just throwing in boom mics because these movies had boom mics and so you need to have them. He throws them in at places where that's where they would have been in those movies, Yes. And it's also like a nod to the fact that it wasn't just that these movies were made on the cheap and that, the people that were making them were inexperienced. It was also the fact that they didn't have the ability to go back and do retakes a lot of times. Right. It was like, and so there's a love in the way he does it that I think really, really comes through in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It just, it really understands that, and talking about like I've mentioned like blaxploitation movies is either the hero is this or this or this or this. In Black Dynamite is all of those things. Yes. He is a pimp. He's a dealer. He's a hero to the community. He's a man of the streets. He's ex-CIA. He's ex-Special Forces. He's his younger brother gets like all of the tropes. All of them play into this, which is hilarious. And there are other. Undercover Brother, I don't remember if it came out before this or after this, but had some of the same touches, but doesn't lean into it as heavily as this does. And Black Dynamite is the best example of how to lovingly spoof these movies, because it's not making fun of them. It's lovingly spoofing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like he's doing it to kind of, he's almost like paying tribute to a tradition that he's coming from. And I wonder too if like maybe he's talked about, especially in that Vlad TV interview. I think when you were on last time, I mentioned in that same interview he said that a producer told him, "I wish we had a white you," and so that's sort of the stuff that he's dealt with in the industry. And I think he kind of recognizes that the blaxploitation films are kind of part of that history of those movies. despite all the things they went through to make those movies, they're really enjoyable. And there's some really great performances. From obviously Pam Grier's one. You think about a lot, but
Yes,
some.
Brown, yeah.
Yeah. So and I mean, Jim Brown. I think obviously there's a lot we can say about his outside of his film career, but as an actor, he was he could do Shakespearean kind of stuff. He was a really great actor, and he probably should have gotten better roles. I mean, Richard Roundtree's another one. I mean, he probably should have been like a Richard Gere level leading man. When you watch Shaft, you see that quality in him. And I can remember someone like a Fred Williamson making movies. Like he made a movie called it was like a sequel to Three the Hard Way called One Down, Two to Go. And there's a sense when you're watching that movie where he's like, I don't know how I'm getting. I shouldn't be getting Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree, Jim Kelly. They shouldn't be in my movie, my low budget Italian production that I'm doing in New York. These guys should be in Hollywood, and they just weren't getting those roles. And I think Michael Jai White probably seeing it the same way of like, I'm not getting the roles that I should be getting.
It's why the blaxploitation genre is so important, and I think it's very easy to kind of throw them away as cheesy, low budget. Not great action movies, but they're so important in that it was really the Black film community finding a way to make their own movies when they are excluded from as every minority has had to do across the board in all walks of life. If there's no space for us, we have to make our own space so that people coming up behind us can see us in that space and know it's achievable. So, I'm sure a lot of current working Black filmmakers would tribute a lot of blaxploitation movies. You can't be it unless you see it. And so it provided an avenue. It provided the possibility for a lot of people to step into. So yeah, these movies are not great, but super fun and really opened a lot of doors, or at least provided the possibility to see those doors.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think like what Whoopi Goldberg always says, that like the thing that got her into being an actor was seeing Nichelle Nichols on Star Trek, and so you're right. Like it's it's the visibility, it's being able to see it, and I think that's one of the things. I mean, obviously with the Marvel movies, there's what happened recently with Kimmel and sort of ABC, Disney. I think you can maybe kind of put that on one place because I think the MCU itself, it started out as pretty much every movie was a white guy leading man for the first couple phases, but once they start putting in like Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Shang-Chi, you start kind of seeing that they're kind of trying to sort of now we're seeing more with the TV shows as well, like Ironheart and Ms. Marvel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to your point, it's like I think it's it's kind of the same with Chris Claremont in the 80s with the X-Men comics, where he was just he got a whole diverse range of people into comic books that originally it was just like, oh no, white kids should be reading comics, that's really what this should be, white male kids I should say, and Chris Claremont's like, well, every time he created a character, it's like, well, could this character be a woman? He started bringing in people from all backgrounds into the comics, and that led to a whole, like more people saying like, yeah, I can do this. I can make comics. I can, act in comic book movies. I can do that kind of thing. And yeah, I think to the same point, I think, for actors growing up in the 80s, and I think, even though Wesley Snipes and Denzel Washington almost seem like the exceptions that prove the rule as mainstream, or in Eddie Murphy is another name you put in there. I think to your point too, I think it also led to a visibility that like, yeah, people could say like, hey, I can do that, and kind of leaves us with Michael Jai White here saying, I can make this movie. I can do this. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's just, yeah. Like I said, it's a fine line between, it feels like a loving homage, but also it's very, very funny.
Yes.
And it could easily fallen into like making fun of without, yeah. So it's great. I'm so happy. And I'm not gonna lie to you, totally forgot that it ends with a nunchuck fight with Richard Nixon. That is, that Black Dynamite wins because of an assist from the ghost of Abraham Lincoln.
Right, exactly. And I think one of the things about that works, because this is I think why this movie works so well, and some of these other ones that I've watched before don't work that well, is that the other movies do the Richard Nixon thing at the very beginning, and they just throw more and more Richard Nixon stuff at you, whereas this movie builds to the Richard Nixon thing.
Yes.
And which I really love. I mean, the opening scene, I think, and we won't necessarily go scene by scene, but I think the opening scene is what really gets you into it, where his brother, the character is playing his brother, he's sort of reading his lines as like a, English, Shakespearean trained actor, which was a kind of a common thing again.
Common thing, yeah.
Right?
Black British Shakespearean trained actors who couldn't get work or had played like Othello on stage. The guy who played Blackula had played Othello multiple times, and then came over here and was like, all right. So, yeah, he clearly, or at least the movie presents him as a British actor pretending to be an American actor who gets killed. And then, yes, when the cops learn who's killed, oh no, do you know whose brother this is? The streets are gonna run red with blood. It just so that you're introduced to Black Dynamite to this over the top way that well, this man is serious.
Yeah, and again, it's like it's all plays out perfectly, and yeah, I mean, even with that, like talking about, actors like trying to, black actors in England trying to find work. I know Tandy Newton, when she did Chronicles of Riddick, she talked about how it was really hard to get work in England because everybody wanted to do these Victorian pieces, and they just wanted all white actors in those Victorian.
And Bridgerton didn't exist yet.
right, exactly, yeah, and so that's, but to some extent that ended up being our benefit because we got more Tandy Newton here, we got more Idris Elba, and so that did help us here. But on the same token, it was like, again, these things that Michael Jai White is sort of paying homage to and poking fun of that happened in the 70s were still true in 2009 and still true today to some extent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Now that introduction sequence is really fantastic too, because again, it hits all the spots you want. It's like it's both funny and homage, and it's like it kind of gets you in the spirit of what you're watching here.
Yeah, with kind of animation mixed in, and then the music, because of course with these movies, the blaxploitation era, the music was so important. Everyone knows the theme song of Shaft, even if they've never seen Shaft. Right. You know what I mean? And so the music that the Dynamite thing, every time somebody gets their ass kicked, Dynamite, like that will stick in your head after watching this movie just for a very long time, appropriately so. But to mix that into this opening sequence as we're introduced to Black Dynamite and how he's skilled, it really incorporates that in the best way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was so great. And then, of course, like throughout the movie, where you've got like this, like the 70s soul music that's telling you what's happening in the scene, which is so perfect too.
Yes, the song about he's going to his brother's apartment and his brother's not there, and I'm like, wow, this. Oh man! Not only that, I think there's the same type of song plays when he has to go to his brother's funeral.
Yes.
And the song just in the background, if you listen to it, is like, can't believe his younger brother has passed away.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Then of course he has the aunt who's giving him a hard time for not taking care of his brother.
Oh my God, that aunt! Yeah. The woman playing the aunt is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because she just it feels like her whole purpose is to like clearly explain Black Dynamite's motivation.
Right.
You swore to your mother on her deathbed you would protect your younger brother, and now he's dead. And I wrote it down because, oh my God, this line. Wait, if your mother was here today, she would be rolling over in her grave to see this. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, great. Got it.
Yeah, no, I love that too. That was, yeah.
Oh, and that's also because she originally calls. And it's, again, if you haven't seen Black Dynamite, you've probably seen the meme, who the hell is interrupting my kung fu? And it comes from when he's practicing his kung fu because this old CIA buddy tells him that his brother's dead, who's now a cop. It's so much. And he goes to practice his kung fu, and then his aunt calls to tell him that his brother's dead. And he answers the phone with, who the hell is interrupting my kung fu? Which is right in line. Just perfect.
Right. Yeah, and they bring that back up later on, when he goes to Kung Fu Island, where, yes. he pulls some Enter the Dragon stuff, like, like Mr. Wu, I think I'd like to leave your island, and, which I love. But he's also like Kung Fu treachery, there's Kung Fu, and,
oh my God, the line, I wrote that one down too. Hold on, because I had to rewind and watch it twice because the line was so, I should have known it was you, fiendish Dr. Wu. Your knowledge of scientific biological transmogrifications is only matched by your zest for kung fu treachery.
Yes.
That is probably the single greatest line ever put in any movie ever.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was so perfect. And again, I think what makes that line so great is that the movie is building up to this point.
Yes.
It's like it's like when it starts out, it's got these sort of like these goofy moments. Like for example, the brother who's speaking like a Shakespearean actor, but like doing that's like try to speak like the characters in those movies. And so you got these moments like that, but it's not like full on goofy,
No,
right?
it starts on the streets. It's a
Yes.
street movie when it starts. It's like his brother was killed, and he's told it was because he was high on this new drug.
Right.
Black Dynamite, you get to clean up the streets. The drugs are coming for the children. Oh my God. The scene in the orphanage was all the orphans are now on the new drug. Oh my God. It's so over the top. But yes, it starts there. Like, got to clean up the streets. When he busts in to the room filled with pimp cameos,
Yeah.
when you want some crazy ass pimp cameos, Lord, Brian McKnight as a pimp is not something I ever thought I would see. Paired with John Sally as a pimp, it's that whole room full of random pimp cameos, including our city hall. Fantastic. But when he goes in and tells them, I'm here to anyone who's dealing drugs in the community, I'm after them. And one of the pimps, Cedric Yarborough, goes, but Black Dynamite, I deal drugs in the community.
Yes.
It's just, so it starts there, but then it builds to, yes, oh, but now the mob is involved. So now he goes after the mob. Well, the mob's running the drug, we're going after the mob. But then the politicians get involved. It's like, okay, well, if the politicians are behind the mob, who's behind the drugs in the community, we're coming after them. Then you come to find the CIA. So the whole movie, as you just said, builds to this. The CIA is behind it now. It's a government conspiracy. Let's unravel how they're trying to sell us Anaconda malt liquor. And we figure out what the purpose is of Anaconda malt liquor. And then when they back that up, they find that the fiendish Dr. Wu is behind the CIA plot. But then you have to find out who hired Dr. Wu.
Right.
Again, it's embracing the conspiracies that were in some of these movies, but it uses all of them.
Yes, yeah. Well, because I think like the Anaconda, the Anaconda malt liquor, poisoning. That was a nod to an urban legend that I think it was Church's Chicken was trying to poison the black community.
Which again, I believe is the plot point in Undercover Brother.
Right, exactly. That's right. Because Michael Jai White did play in the sequel to Undercover Brother.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Have I seen the sequel to Undercover Brother? I'm not sure I have.
No, it came out. I think it came out the same year as Dolomite Is My Name. I think they came out around the same time. Yeah.
Okay, I will make a note of that.
Yeah, it's not as good. It's not as good as the first. It's not as good as this either. It's not as good as Black Dynamite, but it does all right. So it's got Barry Bostwick in it as so. So I think that might have been where he met Barry Bostwick for the next movie.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because really, everybody in these movies is a friend of Michael Jai White or has worked with Michael Jai White. The one actor who, and I recognize him because he's the card dealer in Outlaw Johnny Black, but he's in this movie. Must be a good friend of his because he's every time Black Dynamite kills a bunch of white thugs, this guy is one of the white thugs.
Right.
Like he gets killed a dozen plus times in the movie, and it's fantastic. And I think he's the same guy who's playing the Ghost of Abraham Lincoln, but I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think because he plays a couple parts. I think in Outlaw Johnny Black as well. I think he's the card dealer and he's a bartender. I think.
And I love it because it's not subtle. Because that's again an homage to these movies where like you see that dude every scene and he gets killed every single time.
Right, exactly. Now I wanted to come back to that, kind of the Pimp Summit because that was also was it. There was a blaxploitation film that had the Pimp Summit in it, and so
only one.
Yeah, I think right, exactly. Well,
was it Superfly?
I think it might have been Superfly. There was that one that had it, and so he wanted to do that. I mean, the fact that he was able to get the people he got for that scene.
Yes.
I mean, Bokeem Woodbine. I never knew that Bokeem Woodbine was that funny. I didn't know he had that sense of humor because I hadn't seen anything that he did where he was able to use that kind of sense of humor.
Oh yeah. He needs to be in more comedies.
Yeah, it's such a. I mean, that's I think the other pieces, and like you can get as many talented people for a movie like this, and you can get them all on board, and they can do their thing. But I think if the film doesn't kind of have this sort of consistency that Black Dynamite has, you've just got people doing one-off scenes here or there. The fact that it all has
the tone is very clear the entire way through, and it's maintained.
Yeah,
it's maintained all the way through. It never takes itself too seriously, and it never takes itself too jokey. Like there are jokes, but everyone in plays them for real.
Yes. No, I want to mention too the Gloria character. I just had her name up. Oh, Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. There's that scene. So he meets her, at a rally where she's essentially, at this political rally, she's telling everybody like, "Hey, this congressman who's representing us is not good for our community. We need to vote him out." Which again, it kind of, it's kind of a modern situation as well that you're seeing, but
don't trust the politicians. They're not here to do us any good.
Right, exactly. I mean, you think of like AOC with it was the guy's name Capuano. I can't remember who it was that was in New York who had his district for decades. He was just great friends with Pelosi and everybody. And they did a documentary on her running against. There was a few people that were running in districts like that, but she was running against him, and there was supposed to be a debate where he was supposed to debate her, and he just sent a representative to go instead. And so, I guess maybe it's kind of funny how this movie is depicting that, but it was like kind of the same thing there. And it's like it still was a close race. Like she still, when she won it, she had it because there wasn't going to be a Republican running against her. But it's kind of funny that again, what was that? 15 years after this was made, I think, right? That
and that's the thing. Like the themes in this maintain throughout.
Right, exactly. But I love how she meets him. They're talking. They go to the hospital. She meets him at the hospital.
Philip Morris, as another one of the Panthers, fantastic.
Yes, he was so great. He was fantastic. Because he goes to see the Panthers. I love the thing too when one of the guys in the Panthers group.
Yes.
Yeah, he says something to him, and he's like, you sit down, while grown folks are speaking, because he got that from, I think it's from the Mac, has that line.
Yes.
Yes.
I also love that one of the Panthers is reading his own stage direction.
Right. Yes.
Where it's like, angrily, the militant stand up. How are you, and how did you get in here? And the moment the Black Dynamite takes and looks off screen as if he's waiting for the director to cut around that, and he doesn't, and they just move forward.
Yes.
Brilliant. That's exactly what you're looking for here.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. And that character continues to read his own stage directed all the way through.
He does, right?
Wonderful.
Sarcastically, he replied, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's
so good.
It was so good. And again, that's one of the things about Black Dynamite with Michael Jai White's character in this is that there are moments where he's almost breaking the fourth wall. And
yes.
Like say, like, I'm not as ridiculous as you think, or like this. I think some of this is ridiculous too sometimes, but then other times he's all in. His character's all in.
And it's so funny when you read, like he is playing Black Dynamite, but he's also like, it's not Michael Jai White playing Black Dynamite. Michael Jai White is playing, and I forgot the name. It's somebody Ferrante.
Oh yes, that's right.
Is playing, like he had a whole thing where like he's playing a guy who was a pro football player for the Baltimore Colts before they moved to Indianapolis, and they had a neck injury and then couldn't play football anymore and shifted into acting. He had all of that. I kind of wish, and I bet you there were viral commercials that covered that, but I should have dug into that a little bit deeper. I wish that was a little more, or maybe one had been in front of the movie, like coming this summer, starring football star so-and-so, so that we understood that's what was happening a little bit more. That's just another layer to this that I think really would have played even better.
Yeah, well, because that's the unfortunate thing is that he was working on such a tight budget compared to, like, say, Tarantino was doing this movie, right? He would have had, all those kinds of things in there.
It wouldn't have been. Oh, no, thank you.
No, right? No, it wouldn't have been as good, right?
Thank God.
No, right?
But yes, I understand what you're saying.
Right. Well, right. The budget, right? He would have had the budget to do whatever he wanted, but it wouldn't have been as right.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. What we would have liked is if Michael Jai White had the budget that Tarantino would have to make a movie like
that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the other thing, so on that Vlad TV interview that he did, he mentioned about how he had a whole plan in his mind for this movie where he was going to kind of follow the Tyler Perry marketing strategy for like the Medea movies and things like that. And yeah, he went to Sony with it and said, listen, this is going to make money in the theaters. It's going to make its budget back. We can do this. And Sony didn't want to do it. And so it had like a very limited theatrical run, but mostly it was direct to video. And so, but he said it ended up being, it was like one of the most popular direct to video movies to come out when it was, because it was still, 2009 would have still been in the blockbuster era. So it had that kind of success, but he was like, yeah, if they had just listened to me, I had the whole thing ready to go. And I think he thought if he went in with sort of the Tyler Perry strategy that they would look at it and say, yeah, that this will work. It would have been interesting to see.
Well, especially if he sold this based on a trailer he made. I wish that he had sold it on more of those. I wish they had been included, and I wish that had continued through. Oh, we can talk about that when we get to the next movie. But it's so interesting. Like it, but there's absolutely no reason it could. He can keep going with these, right? The reason Black Dynamite works, and every person I've talked to who's seen it loves it.
Yes.
And I think that's very, very rare. I think Hot Shots is another example of that. I think Airplane, when you take it back to that, very, very similar vibe in that you don't have to be for a spoof movie to work exceptionally well. You don't have to be super familiar with the genre it's making fun of. You can be casually familiar, or at least have an understanding that that's what's happening. But the movie will still work for you, and this does that. Like not every spoof movie does that. So that's, I think, another layer of why this one is so good, but also why the character of Black Dynamite, air quotes, or the actor who he's playing, I think Anthony Ferrante. I feel like
I think that was the name. Yeah, it's
something like that.
It was in the trivia, I think, as well. Yeah, because one of the things I was reading the trivia is like he doesn't turn his head correctly because the character supposedly broke his neck.
Yes, because of this football player who. Yeah, see, that's stuff we need to know.
right, exactly. Yeah, and I think part of the things, I think he also, I mean, like we see a lot of the Pimp Summit jokes in the credits, and I do
which it feels like there was probably a day where he got all those, and really Arsenio could have done a day on this movie, and he just let them all go in their fancy costumes and pimp cuffs and throws.
Yeah, and I do wonder too if in his mind thinking I'm going to pitch this to Sony as in the vein of a Tyler Perry style ad campaign or production campaign, if he thought I need to shrink this down to like what I think it was like 85 minutes, that it'll be easier to package that way. And I wonder if he cut some of the stuff out, because I mean one of the things when we talk about the next movie is he doesn't really do that same kind of editing.
It's too long.
Right, exactly.
But also kind of on par for some westerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm trying to think of some of the. I mean, one of my other favorite moments in the scene is in the movie is when he and the Gloria character are kind of having their moment together, where they're out on the date. And
you mean their montage, their dating montage?
The dating montage.
Oh my god!
And
so good.
I never really thought of it before, but it's so many of these 60s and 70s movies during the dating montage, there would be like this chase kind of thing, like like they're playing tag in the park or something like that. And I love how Black Dynamite's character is like, wait, what do you want me to do? And she's like, no, you got to come catch me. And he's like, wait, okay, I'll catch you, whatever. And
he looks so perplexed. Right. It is fantastic.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Now, what were some of your favorite moments that we haven't talked about, Jeanette?
Oh boy, there's so many. I do love that dating montage. In the dating montage, as they're walking through, because the dating montage follows the montage of he and his crew, which, by the way, Bullhorn, fantastic, totally a takeoff on the Dolomite, constantly rhyming and super loud. Cream Corn, Tommy Davidson's character of like the just ridiculous, fantastic. But his crew pairing with the Panthers, cleaning up the community. So there's a montage of them going after the mob, the drug dealers, cleaning up the community, and then a newspaper comes out like, they've cleaned up the community, and now we're all... And then they have their dating montage where now they're clearly walking through the community, having a great time, when they come up to the girls playing double dutch. And Gloria's like, oh, I got to try. And then she says to the girls, oh, what are your names? And they tell her their names, and she goes, well, I'm Gloria. This is Black Dynamite. And one of the girls goes, my mama says my daddy's name is Black Dynamite. And the other girl goes, mine too. And he goes, quiet down, little girls. Lots of folks have that name. Just so ridiculous, but I love it. The bit with the orphans. Not the orphans. And then he has to have another flashback where, like, the flashbacks honestly are the best. With his mother giving him the please take care of your brother. And then the flashback slightly older where he's grabbing his brother and going, Jimmy, I am 18-year-old Black Dynamite, and you are my 16-year-old kid brother, Jimmy. And you are on those drugs, and I have to get you clean. Ridiculous, fantastic, right in line. The Kung Fu treachery, it's so good. Bullhorn getting beheaded. No one makes it through this movie but Black Dynamite. His team all... I guess Gloria makes it through too, but oh my goodness. The doctor, the scene where he is about to have sex with the nurse, but the doctor comes in and wags his finger and says, Black Dynamite, how could you? And he goes, well, you sent her in here with those titties. Honestly, that line shouldn't be as funny as it is, and yet I laughed so hard. It's all of it. It's a movie where overall it works, but individually a lot of the scenes are just so funny. The scene where they break down the conspiracy and they start with where Roscoe in the back, because they're going to Roscoe's what is it, chili and something?
Oh, chili and donuts.
Chili and donuts.
Right.
And then at some point he's like, "Oh, we're out of the chili, but we got waffles, and I can bring you some chicken." And I think it's chicken and waffles. And then Roscoe from like 3 booths over in the back, I'm like, "Chicken and waffles, that's it!" And runs off to change the name of the restaurant. Perfect. Because it's oh man, yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot. In the quotable moments, I think, are the ones that I really, really enjoy. It just the. And I had forgotten about the nunchuck battle with Richard Nixon, which is just the best.
Well, and because that's the thing, right? Is that when you I had forgot about it too, because it's like when I started to kind of think about it, I was like, oh wait, that's right, he fights. I think I was also kind of paging through the trivia as I was watching it, and I was like, oh, that's right, because I guess the guy who played Richard Nixon like trained like 6 hours a day on how to use the nunchuck so he could make that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Speaking of which, like the fight sequences are great. Yeah. They are really, they're quality. They're the one where Bullhorn pops into let everybody know and suckers be warned, and this is the outcome when you mess with Bullhorn. That type of the Dolomite cadence of early wrapping your lines. But when he pops in to save or at least to head off the gangsters while Black Dynamite chases down Chicago Wind, played by Michael D. Williamson, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Which again, talk about quality actors in this. But Bullhorn steps in to fight a guy, and they're having their fight sequence, and Bullhorn accidentally slaps a guy for real, and you see the guy break character, stand up and go, "Did you?" And then it cuts, and you see Bullhorn continuing the fight with what is clearly a different actor.
Right. Yes.
What a beautiful touch. Spectacular. But yeah, all the fight sequences, anytime Michael Jai White or Black Dynamite is beating up people using his kung fu, dealing with their kung fu treachery, the fights are great.
Yeah, it's again one of those things where like probably only Michael Jai White could do this.
Yes,
because he's the only one who has like the combination of the martial arts chops and this comedic acting, plus like the knowledge of the blaxploitation films. It's that mix of stuff that like only he could pull this off, but yet he does pull it off so well.
Yes, I agree. Only he could do this movie on this level, and I think a lot of other actors think they could, and they wouldn't be able to. In the same way of like, if you watch Dolomite Is My Name, Eddie Murphy was the perfect choice there to lovingly portray Rudy Ray Moore's desire to give the community something they can find joy in. He is able to give that same level of like, I'm genuinely doing this because I want to provide this joy, so I will create this over the top persona. Only Eddie Murphy can give you, he's talented enough to give you those layers to give all of the tones of the silliness of the Dolomite movie, but the genuineness of Rudy Ray Moore underneath it. And I think only Michael Jai White can give you the silliness of Black Dynamite with the genuine love of this genre of movie that he is lovingly spoofing. It's the perfect man in the perfect role in the perfect project, and it rarely happens.
Yeah, it's amazing how well this comes off. I just, like when my friends and I, we rented it, we got it from Netflix, and I remember we immediately watched the whole thing again with the commentary track. So
yes, of course.
Yeah, and, I mean, I don't know how many movies are like that you can watch it once and be like, yeah, I could just watch it again. I could just let's fire it back up. But this one does, like all of the jokes. I mean, like you said, mentioned the Roscoe chili and donuts instead of Roscoe. I mean, that's a great one there. I mean, I love that. I mean, there's a little touch where they're at the warehouse and they're taking out the mob guys at the warehouse, and there's a bunch of guys standing around and they're asking him questions and they're not answering. They're just pointing at things. And Michael Jai White said, well, the whole point is that they're extras and extras can't talk, right? So
right, exactly. There's no money. Yes.
Yeah. So like all those little touches like that, just absolutely fantastic. So
also, the credits layering like the animation and the outtakes over the credits. I will forever stand on the soapbox that please every single movie should have outtakes over the end credits. Yeah. But this one has just extra scenes that, like you said, maybe cut for time or whatever. learning that Oscar winner Ruth E. Carter, did the costumes for this because it looks great. That's another aspect of this. Like the movie looks fantastic. It understands the era it's in, and all of the costumes are spectacular.
Well, yeah, the costumes are spectacular. They did a great job with the set design, with locations, soundtrack. Yeah, it's just absolutely amazing that all of this, and again, it's done on a tight budget. I don't know if IMDb has what the budget is on here. It does. It says 2.9 million, which that sounds like a good amount based on what you think, but it's not. That's
compare it to almost anything else that's getting made.
Yeah, it was entirely shot in LA, which even in 2009 was still expensive to do. So yeah, I mean, I imagine a lot of people involved, a lot of the names involved, probably either took a flyer on a paycheck or went for well under what they normally would get. But they must have seen the script and believed it and said, yeah, I want to do this.
I maybe had the same appreciation for these movies, same love for what was trying to be done. And because no one stands out as missing the mark. Everyone is on board and nails it.
Yeah, which it just helps as well. Yeah, I was trying to think. Is there anything else on your end? Anything else in your notes that you had about this one?
No, I love all the sequences. I love the building. I wrote down the progression of street level drug dealers to the mob, to the politicians, to the CIA, to the fiendish Dr. Wu, to the president. Yes. I wrote that down. And then unraveling the conspiracy, how funny that was. Just the kung fu costumes, the bit in the. And when he apologizes to the first lady, because again, a lot of these movies, based on the times, incredibly misogynistic. Ooh, the misogyny of the blaxploitation era, to the point where even with Pam Grier and them step up, but it's layered in there. Mm-hmm. So when he goes back and apologizes to the first lady that he hit her, and she's like, "But I tried to shoot you," and he's like, "Yes, but that was against my code, and so I feel that I owe you an apology." And then he gets that triumphant final pose. I love that. What a hilarious little bit.
Yeah, because to your point, there's that other scene earlier where he's talking to Gloria. He's like dropping her off at Kim Whitley's place, where the I guess she's a brothel, right? And she's and so he's dropping her off there, and then this woman Euphoria comes in and says something, and he like breaks his character. You gotta just
definitely felt like
and so there's that sense that maybe he's like learning to be less like that way or something. But I also too to your point, I think he kind of recognized that misogyny as well and thought, let me play on that a little bit, where the character becomes self-aware of something he did.
Let me acknowledge it, and it's so fun. And the bit very very early on where he's looking for, and it's like his first sequence where Honeybee calls him and says Nipsey hasn't paid yet, right. Which again implies that he is also pimping.
Right. Yes.
So he goes to get the money from Nipsey, and he knocks on the door and goes, "I'm looking for Nipsey." And a very old lady says, "Well, Nipsey's not here." He busts into the door and backhands the old lady across the room.
Right, exactly.
And then fights Nipsey, who shows up with the bat. And the bat, I love. And again, the level of stunt choreography here is not just. And then the guy who plays Dr. Wu participated in a lot of the fight choreography, which I love. They obviously show how rubber the bat is in that fight, so that you can tell, I see, it's a rubber bat. The levels you have to be thinking of, okay, well, first we have to choreograph that the guy is attacking Black Dynamite with a bat, but then we have to add this layer of fight choreography where we can clearly show the bat is rubber, so the audience knows that we understand. In these original movies, it would have been a rubber bat. We have to show that, but we also have to choreograph the fight. That takes so much skill, and it's so wonderful.
Yeah, well, because the fight choreographers are the Yuan brothers, Ron and Roger, and so he's worked with them before, and they do great stuff. I think I don't know if both of them, or at least maybe just Roger is one of the kung fu treachery, or Dr. Wu's henchmen.
Dr. Wu, yeah.
But like Gary Daniels is one of the stunt, which I didn't realize he's one of the stunt doubles, or stunt workers.
It's Michael Jai White, because at this point had a very long career in these martial arts movies and made a lot of connections.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, one last thing I wanted to mention quickly, because this might actually segue us into Outlaw Johnny Black, because this actor plays in both of these movies. Is the actor, was it Kevin Chapman. I almost said Ron Chapman.
Yes,
Kevin Chapman.
yes.
Yeah, who's from Dorchester, Massachusetts, near Boston. And
which you can tell.
yeah, what I loved is like how he made sure he was nailing his R's on things because he wanted to dull his accent, but he couldn't get rid of that Boston O. That it's not for you, Black Dynamite. This is
Yes.
Your brother was not killed by one of us, Black Dynamite. It's like he couldn't get rid of that O part, but the R's, he was doing his best on the R's, and so yeah, it's a little less prominent in the next movie, but it's still there. You still hear it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's another guy, like, he perfectly understands his role in this, and it's so funny.
Yeah, so good. Well, yeah.
Good point. Yeah, he was one of the first people I noticed in then watching for the first time.
Yeah.
Outlaw Johnny Black.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll transition to that one then. Outlaw Johnny Black. Now that was one. It's actually the interesting thing about Outlaw Johnny Black. It is the 8th most reviewed movie on my site.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I reviewed it just a little while ago. It was I think it was right around when it came out. I reviewed it. So it came out in 2023, I believe, and so. Yes, 2023. So at the end of the year in 2023, I reviewed it, and so yeah, it's one. It doesn't have. It's only got like 28 critic reviews. It feels like a movie that should have more than that. But this is his take on the Western genre from there, which I've seen a couple of Fred Williamson's. So there's a movie Boss, and I won't say the full title, Boss, which also has D'Urville Martin in it. I always love that one because in that movie, have you ever seen that one before?
I don't think so, no.
So it's on Tubi. The quality of the one on Tubi isn't bad, but one of the things I love about that is that you've got, Fred Williamson's character and D'Urville Martin's character. They're bounty hunters who essentially take over a town and become the sheriff. And then there's a Latin American community, I think, that's just outside of town. And so between his character and D'Urville Martin's character and then the Latin American community outside of town, they all speak in sort of like this more like, not sophisticated, but the kind of a more human way, And then all the white people in the town are the ones saying the N-word all the time. They're the ones who just are barbarians and stuff like that. And it's this really great juxtaposition the way he set that up, because it's not how Westerns work, right? Westerns, it's usually the white people in town are the sophisticated ones and everybody else are the savages. And the fact that he did it the other way around, where, no, it's everybody else that's actual human beings. I thought it was a really great way he did that. And of course, D'Urville Martin was fantastic in it as in kind of a smaller role. And then Joshua was another really good one. That's they're both on Tubi. So Fred Williamson, his take on the Western genre, I thought was good. And I think at least on that level, Michael Jai White gets. I mean, neither of those movies are anywhere near as long as this movie is.
Yeah, it's interesting because about this movie. How long is Outlaw Johnny Black?
2 hours and 15 minutes.
That's too long.
Yeah.
Number one. But again, felt like a lot of Westerns are. Yes. Yeah. I kind of wish, and again, like the viral marketing campaign that I know existed for Black Dynamite, I wish had been used a little bit stronger for Outlaw Johnny Black, and like, again, reintroduce this to the actor you're playing who played Black Dynamite, or give us a commercial where it's like this from Black Dynamite, this is a character from Black Dynamite, it's now starring in another new adventure, so that we can understand that these are the same people making a new movie in this Western thing. It felt like this one wasn't as even tone-wise, and I think that's kind of my main issue with it. It's a lot of it is very funny, a lot of it is the perfect homage. It doesn't seem as even and as funny all the way through as Black Dynamite. That was my impression.
Yeah, no, same here. And I think the other thing is that the scenes were not as tight as they were in Black Dynamite. So, like, the flashback to his dad being killed by,
too long.
Right, it was too long. There's sequences where he's talking with Byron Mims that goes on to, like, the stuff where Byron Mims' character is captured by the local Native American community. Some of those jokes went on too long, and they weren't all that great as far as jokes either. I think it's
exactly they were, and it's tough, right? Because one of the guys playing the Native Americans is clearly a white guy with bright blue eyes, and that's the point, right? Because you're making fun of the way they were cast in the 70s. But it almost doesn't go quite far enough to really make sure that they know they're in on the joke, or you know what I mean? Like, it was still a little bit cringy, so something needed to be changed there. And I don't know what the answer is, but it wasn't quite clear enough that we're making fun of the way they did this in the 70s. it needed to be a little bit more clear that's what was happening. I'm not sure what the answer is to it, but yeah, that sequence was too much. It wasn't as done wasn't done as well as it could have been.
No, and the answer to that is actually what they tried to do, and it just didn't come off. And that was that they wanted people who were actually of Native American descent in the scenes with them, giving them the side eye. And
see,
yeah, and what they needed was
they needed Brandon, I forget his name, but they needed his character from Tropic Thunder, because his character in Tropic Thunder is what allows RDJ's character in Tropic Thunder to exist.
Yes,
right. They needed that. They needed like Adam Beach to be doing that here. And yeah, that's an excellent point. They needed that and didn't quite come off as strongly as it should have.
Yeah, because that was the idea. It's like, if you can sometimes see it if you look in the background, but it's not obvious. So they mentioned the trivia that Michael Jai White had. People. So it was like a mix of white people playing Native American characters as the joke for but then also people that are actually of Native American descent playing the characters. They were supposed to be giving them the side eye, like especially when they were talking and stuff. But that
joke didn't quite land. No. They missed the mark a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things they got dinged for. And I also thought the whole thing with him pretending to be Byron Minn's Reverend character, and kind of I guess the best way to describe it is consent issues with the two sisters. So Erica Ash, who fortunately is no longer with us, playing Bessie Lee, who she thought she was going to be with Byron Minn's character. It's the Reverend, and when Michael Jai White's character shows up pretending to be the Reverend, she thinks, "Oh, this is my husband. This is the guy who's supposed to be my husband." So I'll and then the sisters there, Jessie Lee, played by Anika Nani Rose, who then falls in love with him, and then he's got to kind of like extricate himself from that. It was like a whole thing that I don't think it was a needle that they really threaded well.
Yeah, again, a little bit cringy. Yeah, the difference in acknowledging, like a lot of the movies from the 70s are very problematic now. Yeah. But when you spoof those, there's a way to do that with acknowledgement and also make it work. And I think Black Dynamite does that, and I don't think Outlaw Johnny Black does. And maybe because the genre it's spoofing is a little more dicey than the blaxploitation genre. The westerns were a little more because of what's incorporated. I don't know what it just didn't work as well, and there's a lot of it in there that just didn't. It was more cringy than funny. Yeah. And whereas in Black Dynamite those scenes are funny, here they're very cringy. And it didn't quite go the distance it should have.
Yeah. Now, what did you think about splitting the difference with them using the N word? Because obviously, like the Fred Williamson westerns I talked about, white characters use that word throughout the movies, and in this movie he used like a slant on the word, but it's still using the word even if it's not quite the word. I guess I like the fact that he didn't just have the white characters just saying the word the whole movie.
I didn't mind that. I think that was a good adjustment. Because I don't want to hear that word all the time. It's why I can't watch Quentin Tarantino movies. I don't want to hear it. Yeah. I don't need to hear it. It's pointless. There's no reason to be using it. Yeah. I like that they avoided it in this. And the whole time I was watching this, there was a little bit of, it's tough because I see what you're wanting to do, but didn't Blazing Saddles almost do this better?
Yeah.
So long ago. So there's a little bit of that mixed in too, and I think there's certainly certain sequences around use of the word and around the racism of the town and around the racism in the movies that I think Blazing Saddles kind of incorporates. Ironically, even the sequence with the Native Americans, I feel like Blazing Saddles, that's an example of taking the joke too far to be to the point of like, oh, we see the joke.
Right.
We get it. And I feel like this movie, it's tough.
No, you make a
whereas Black Dynamite exists in a realm where no one else had really quite, like Undercover Brother exists, but it's not the same type of thing. But like no one else had really done what he was doing. Whereas this movie, there was a little bit of like, Blazing Saddles did that better.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that I never considered before. That like Black Dynamite, you can put it maybe in the conversation with like an Airplane or Hot Shots, but it's a unique thing that nobody had really pulled off spoofing blaxploitation this well before. Yeah. Or not spoofing, but also doing it as an homage. And you're right that like Blazing Saddles, even though Blazing Saddles was supposed to be making fun of, westerns, sort of mainstream westerns, and making fun of all of the bad tropes that are in mainstream westerns, and this was more like trying to be like an homage to like kind of Fred Williamson's westerns and those from that period. You're right, like it still feels like there's a lot of areas where Blazing Saddles did it better, and so yeah,
and it's a very specific subgenre is trying to make fun of, whereas there's a lot of like, because there's in general everyone's familiar with westerns, but they're not as familiar with the blaxploitation offshoot specific westerns that a lot smaller examples, fewer examples, and so it's a little bit tougher. Whereas like again, even if you've never seen a blaxploitation movie, you're aware of that genre, and so Black Dynamite works for you. But in this, you're maybe less aware of the offshoot of the western blaxploitation movies, and so thusly Outlaw Johnny Black might not work as well. If the jokes were tighter, if everything was tighter, it would work for everyone, regardless if you're familiar with that genre or not. But it doesn't quite work for everybody on that level. Or if it had, in an odd way, broadened out and been less of those specifically and more of westerns in general, it might be a little bit more. Because one of my favorite westerns is Silverado, and I'll be the first one to tell you Silverado. Way too long. Yeah. Way too long. And it's got everything. And it has this thing of like, 4 different bad guys. The same thing of like, they're coming to take the town, and they want to take the town because they want the land, and it's the government and the bad guys, and they hired rustlers or rough riders, air quotes. And they went because the railroad or the oil, and they're coming in to do this, and they're going to ride into town on this day, and you got to assemble. It goes all the way back to, every Western has those tropes, but Silverado has all of those, plus everything else. Like, the movie's too long, but it's got all the tropes in it. But it works in that movie. And if you want to see Jeff Goldblum in a fur coat arrive into the middle of a Western town and say to someone, Sheriff, I'm a gambler who has just arrived from New York City, and who do I speak to about engaging in a game of chance? I sure hope it's not this gentleman who's laying dead on the ground in front of him. That line would have worked in this movie had they played it correctly, but instead you give it to Jeff Goldblum in Silverado, and it works there as well in a perfectly genuine Western movie. So if they had broadened out a little and made fun of all Westerns and not just this very specific subgenre of Westerns, I mean, that's another option. But again, Blazing Saddles did that better. So I don't know. It's tough. I kind of wanted them to lean harder into the genre they were in before and make it clear these are the same, air quotes, actors from Black Dynamite who are now making Outlaw Johnny Black. Give me that, which it's hinted at, but it's not leaned into as much as maybe I wanted it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that would have, because I mean, think about, Black Dynamite. It starts with an ad for Anaconda malt liquor. This movie could have started with an ad like that too.
Yes,
and that would have been enough to get people into it. I think, for sure.
To understand the tone.
Yeah.
Instead, it feels like at some points it almost takes itself too seriously, and I don't want that.
No,
the guy playing the racist villain with the hair.
Oh, Brent Clayton. Or no, sorry, Chris Browning is the actor's name. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like that dude, he seems to be behaving as if he's in one of, like, a real Western.
Right.
Like, he's not on board with the spoofy kind of joke. Like, that dude felt like a threat, like a very racist threat, and I didn't care for that. Like, his tone, he was taking it too seriously. Credit to him, but felt uncomfortable rather than funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we didn't have anybody like that in the previous movie, in Black Dynamite.
Correct. No.
I mean, really, like, the closest thing is when they give that guy the truth serum, right? And he just starts spouting out the N-word and all this stuff, and he's like telling them what the whole plan. Then he like freezes because they shot him up with too much.
Too much,
right? But like Richard Nixon is not, Brett Clayton or whatever. He's not.
Correct. Yeah. That dude. That performance was too real and felt uncomfortable rather than fun, and I didn't care for that.
No, because if you think about, like, the whole thing, that this whole idea that he's trying to get revenge because his dad was killed, like, that whole sequence is just really dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it also kills a lot of people, right? I mean, he massacres like however many 9 people at
in the bank. Yeah.
And then he shows up where the dad is preaching and challenges him to a duel, or so, and he's kills him right in front of his son. And it's like, maybe those movies would have done that. But I mean, 'cause I don't even remember Fred Williams' movies doing anything like that. Like, they never had that kind of darkness.
Again, credit to Glenn Turman being an incredible actor. And again, this is the guy playing, you just said his name and I forgot it already, playing the Clayton character.
Oh, God, also, Chris Browning. Yeah.
Yes, doing an excellent job. Yeah. Like, those two performances. But again, those two performances belong in a real movie, not a spoof of a real movie. And so it, rather than, it just made me uncomfortable because I was like, oh. Yeah. Again, thinking of Silverado, the sequence in which Danny Glover, by the way, Silverado also has Danny Glover being way too tired, too old for all of the Western shit.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Silverado.
No, I haven't seen that. I need to see that.
Some time, because it's too long.
Right.
But take some time and watch. I'm telling you, it's got everything. It's got Rhea Perlman. Linda Hunt. It's got Brian Dennehy playing the sheriff, because of course it does.
Right.
It's got the everything you want in a Western. Silverado has. It has a young Kevin Costner playing a very lighthearted role, which you haven't seen since then.
Right.
Scott Glenn as the lead. Do yourself a favor. Go watch. But the sequence in which Danny Glover's motivation for joining is they murder his father, of course, because, racism. Yeah. But that sequence, that's kind of what this felt like in Outlaw Johnny Black. I'm like, but I don't want that here.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too heavy. You're not on the right tone. Yeah. And it just, It was less of a joy to watch. Watching Black Dynamite was a joy. Watching this was not. This felt like a trudge. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And Silverado, I can't believe Lawrence Kasdan. I mean, I've seen The Big Chill multiple times.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've got to see this because it's got all the same people in it, or most of them. And it sounds like Kevin Costner, right? They don't cut his scenes out, right? He's actually in Silverado.
Correct. No, he's actually in it.
Right.
Yeah, he is. It is. And today, I'm trying to think, like, maybe like, I don't know, early Costner, like a little Field of Dreamsy, but he is straight up silly.
Okay.
And you don't, when you watch Silverado, you'll be like, wait, this is Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Is he capable of this? He hasn't been in years, but it is, And Jeff Goldblum is my favorite part of it, but it has, all the classic tropes. They have to, Kevin Kline.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, Kevin Kline is in Silverado. Anyway, sorry.
Yes. No, I definitely need to see this. So I'm going to put this on my list. It doesn't look like it's on a streamer right now, but I'll keep an eye out for it because, it seems like a lot of fun. But, to your point about the villain piece, I think Barry Bostwick does more of the goofy scenery chewing.
He's on board.
Yes.
He's like, this is a man who has seen Black Dynamite, met Michael Jai White. And Michael Jai White is like, oh, I'm making another movie like that. Yeah. Barry Bostwick was like, great, got it, understand, I'm in.
Yeah.
He's playing that layer. He's playing that vibe. Not enough of the others are.
No. Well, and I wonder, like, because the other thing too with the Brett Clayton character, Scott Browning's character, is that they also kind of have to shoehorn him. It's like we lose him for a huge chunk of the movie when Black Dynamite shows up at Hope Springs, and now they're dealing with Barry Bostwick and all of that stuff. And then suddenly they bring him back at the end, and it's kind of like, oh, all this stuff is together. And I get that maybe, some of these Westerns in the 70s would have been disjointed like that and would have had all these moving parts that you kind of, got to put your eye goggles on because the movie, all the loose ends are flying together at the end there like that. But I think this movie...
But it doesn't feel like it's on purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't feel purposeful in the same way that it did in the previous movie. And as much as I will say, like, Barry Bostwick was at least on what I thought should have been the tone, there is a sequence where he just straight up threatens to rape Jesse Lee in the middle of his office.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that was all stuff too that they really didn't do in the previous movie. Like there was no damsel in distress stuff with Gloria's character in Black Dynamite. She helps him clean up the neighborhood, and then that's kind of it for her character until she shows up at the White House at the end, right? Which just out of nowhere just shows up there and
just runs in.
Yeah, and to some extent, I almost kind of feel like I don't know if it was shoehorned in here as well. It was almost like they felt like, well, Westerns, you got to have a damsel in distress element to it, but. Because she just kind of is there, and
they do introduce her as because they talk about her character. Oh, Jesse Lee should be the mayor instead of what's his name, who I love. That guy is hilarious. Anthony something. He's on Whose Line Is It Anyway all the time.
Oh yes, yeah.
Also capable of more than they give him.
Right.
But they've been talking about Jesse Lee for when he enters his town. Jesse Lee Jesse Lee should be the mayor. Jesse Lee that, and when I keep wanting to call him Black Dynamite.
Yeah, right.
Johnny Black, when he gets to the scene and the bad guys have sent in a sharpshooter and he goes out and handles the sharpshooter. Jesse Lee's coming, Jesse Lee's coming. And a man comes down the street and gives this speech where you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Right.
And then the reveal is like, oh, that's not Jesse Lee. That's her brother Elmer who got kicked in the head by a horse and he's not quite right. Here's Jesse Lee and it's this woman. So they're introducing the woman as this, well, she's brilliant. She's got this education and whatever. By the way, the character of the brother getting hit didn't need any of that.
Right.
That wasn't funny either. That was just cringy.
Right.
Didn't like that
I
at
agree.
all.
Yeah.
Because it's very much making fun of someone with a massive head injury.
Yes.
Yeah, that did not play right. So she's built to be another one of these strong female roles, air quotes strong, in this type of movie, similar to Gloria's character in Black Dynamite, but doesn't really. Yeah, it starts that way and then just evolves. So I don't know. It appropriate for the era. It's spoofing, but then not executed great.
Yeah, that's another thing that's interesting about Black Dynamite being made almost 15 years. Black Dynamite being almost 15 years before this movie. This movie is, I don't want to say politically correct's the right term, but like this movie makes jokes that like would have been kind of hacky in 2009 even. And
Yes.
by 2023, you feel like, okay, nobody's making these jokes anymore. Like, for example, Byron Minns' character, he gets captured by the Native Americans and they have him with, this guy, kind of overweight guy who's dressed like a woman. And it's supposed to be like, oh, this is the woman that they want you to marry or whatever.
Yeah, that made no sense.
No.
And it wasn't funny. It was just dumb. And I was like, this is not it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not a joke that they were making in Black Dynamite. They weren't making that kind of joke then. And again, that kind of joke would have been hacky for 2009.
Yes.
So in 2023, it's even worse. Same thing with the kick, the brother getting kicked in the head by the mule, and now he's got like the one cross eye, and he says, again, that's a joke that in 2009 you're looking at it and you're like, boy, because I remember going back to Tropic Thunder, right? That was the whole thing with Ben Stiller's character, right? That
yes,
right? Why
you never go full, yes,
right? Exactly. So at that point it was even kind of okay. Maybe they can get away with it. Maybe it's like okay, whatever. But like in 2023, you're just like, man. I mean, I get the idea of wanting to have this whole thing of like everybody thinks Jesse Lee is a man until they meet her. He meets her and then discover. I get that part of it, but yeah, again, it's not about. I guess it's not so much about PC or not PC. It's almost just like these jokes were hacky at a certain time. I feel like at this point now, 15 years removed, now it's like beyond hacky. It's like just not necessary.
Yeah. It's just, overall, I don't think Outlaw Johnny Black is as good as Black Dynamite, and it's maybe not fair to connect them, but they're very much in the same, woven of the same materials, right? And just not as good.
No, and yes, it's definitely not fair to Outlaw Johnny Black to compare it to Black Dynamite because Black Dynamite is such a high bar to set. Yes. But I think some of these things we talk about in Outlaw Johnny Black, and we just looking at it on its own merits, are things that like we can look at Black Dynamite and say, well, Black Dynamite didn't do any of those things. Like I think if Outlaw Johnny Black hadn't done some of these other things, like so if they make it 80 minutes or 85 minutes, they cut out the whole Scott Browning, Brett Clayton character, and they remove some of these kind of hackier jokes that they didn't have. If they remove those, I think you still don't have something that's as good as Black Dynamite, but you'd have something on its own merits that you'd say like, okay, it's in the tradition of that and it still works and we had a good time with it. I think that's the problem is that it's like, this probably was never going to be as good as Black Dynamite because that was just going to be too high of a bar to match, but it could have been something in between what we got in Black Dynamite.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. And I think, you go into the Letterboxd reviews, I mean, you're always going to find people that give something a 2. And so like Black Dynamite for the most part has, 4s and 5s, 3.5, 4s and 5, that kind of thing. And then I think there's like 1, 2 of the people that I follow on Letterboxd. Whereas this movie kind of skewed more in that lower direction. I think I can
justifiably so.
Yeah, I agree. And so it's, I'm always, the other thing too is with Michael J. White, I always want to kind of grade him on a curve because it's like, I always want to see him doing more stuff. I want to see him getting more opportunities to do stuff because he's so great on screen. And I think that part of it at least comes through here. Like his martial arts is good. He's still a fun lead that you want to watch.
Yes.
Again, even then, they're trying to do this whole redemption arc for his lead that came out better in Black Dynamite. They just seemed to work better. And so, I don't know if maybe just, Black Dynamite was just this alchemy that was just so perfect at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
In summary, watch Black Dynamite. Maybe don't watch Outlaw Johnny Black.
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna watch them both, watch Outlaw Johnny Black first, and then watch Black Dynamite.
Yeah, that's a good point too. That's a good, because you watching them back to back. Because that's the thing. I watched Outlaw Johnny Black when I first watched it. It was like 15 years almost since I'd seen Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
And so I think it did come off better for me then than it did this time with this back to back rewatch, where I was like, boy, there's a, you know, like my brain was kind of velocitized to the speed of Black Dynamite, where things were moving quicker. Yeah. And when scenes were drawn out here, it was like, boy, they're really drawn out. But, you know, I couldn't verbalize fully what didn't work about Outlaw Johnny Black until you mentioned about the Scott Browning character, because he is darker than anything we get in Black Dynamite.
Yeah, he and Glenn Turman are in a different movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Which would have been a very probably good dramatic Western, but that's not what I signed up for with this. You know what I mean?
Right. You almost kind of wish that Michael Jai White, if they had the money to do it, as if he'd been able to make two movies, right? If he could have made a 90-minute straight-ahead Western with Scott Browning and that, and then this kind of spoof on you know, the 70s blaxploitation Western with Barry Bostwick as the baddie, and you know. Yeah,
it's very interesting. It's I think what I would like is just give us Black Dynamite too.
Right.
Or give us another movie starring Anthony Ferrante as Black Dynamite in something, you know. That's what I want.
That would be an interesting thing, is if he did more Black, like even if it wasn't Black Dynamite, if it was like you said, like another. Yeah. I think that could be interesting. I was kind of seeing what he's got for his upcoming stuff here, and I don't know if I see it. One thing's called Karate Ghost. I don't know what that is, but
oh boy,
yeah,
that sounds like it could be, because I mean, Black Dynamite was very much a blaxploitation movie, but if he delves into like some of the harder Bruce Lee or even what's his name, Jim Kelly, kind of Black Belt Jones stuff, like give us that.
So I don't know what's going on here, because it's got David Koechner as somebody named Lightning Brodsky or something. So
I might be in already.
Yeah, this could be an interesting one. Jim Belushi plays the mayor, and Michael Jai White's playing a principal. So actually, he's playing some. So I don't know what.
Oh, so maybe it's like a spoof of the. Yeah, that's a genre that could. Anyway,
this could be interesting.
Let's wait and see.
Yes.
Let's wait and see.
Yeah, and then
I
also
might be in on that.
We have another what was whose line is it? Is it the improv show has got Colin Mockery in it.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, so this could be interesting. All right, so we'll keep an eye out for this one. But yeah, I mean, as we're wrapping up here, Jeanette, anything else on these two movies or Michael Jai White?
No, if you Michael Jai White is the skill of Don the Dragon Wilson without the attitude. Right. But with also he has a healthy ego, but tempered in, like, his ego goes to the point. He's well aware of his skill set and what he's able to do, has a clear vision and direction, even if maybe the execution isn't always there. And that's what I would say. Like, Michael Jai White I am a fan of. I'm not a super fan of. I think he's wonderful in what he does. I think he understands what he is capable of doing. He does a lot of like short films. He and his wife is also an excellent martial artist. They do a lot of like short films around their house, like where she posted one where her masseuses try to attack her and she has to fight them off, like that kind of fun stuff. They're great. So you follow them on the socials. You get a little bit more depth of insight into what they're about. He's got a lot of really good classic martial arts action movies. And yeah, I would definitely say if you haven't seen Black Dynamite, to all those listening, please do yourself a favor and watch it. You could probably skip Outlaw Johnny Black, but I will recommend Silverado if you're a fan of Westerns. If you have the time, it feels like it's 5 hours long. I'm sure it's not, but man, it feels long. And then, if you haven't seen Dolomite Is My Name, I would watch that. You don't have to see the original Dolomite. I think you can just watch that one. And then if you haven't seen Undercover Brother in a while, I recommend that too.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I was thinking too, like a double feature of Silverado and The Big Chill. Like I just,
there you go. Yeah.
Kind of like with these two movies, right? Two kind of separate movies, but same casts.
Same vibe.
Right. Exactly. And I would say the other thing too about Michael Jai White is that I don't know that anybody that we think of as action stars could have made Black Dynamite. I just
correct.
And the fact that he made it is testament to to his talent. It's just such an amazing thing. So yes. I'm excited to kind of see what else we got from him. I mean, there's some other stuff coming out from him, but he's always a great person to watch. I think he's one of my favorites for sure.
Yes, I agree.
Well, as we're wrapping up, Jeanette, anything that you wanted to plug?
No, not at this point. My movie reviews are well out of date, but I'm working on it. It's over there at jwardadventures.blogspot.com. And I promise I'm working on getting it up to date.
All right, excellent. No, that's perfect. Yeah, I know we've got our longest hiatus on comic book movies that we've had in years.
Yeah,
I think we're 11 months. It's going to be between,
which is fine. Yeah. I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think we could have used some more TV shows in between. Like I think some of that period of time where they were just pumping out as much stuff as possible. I think that could have been maybe a movie or two less in a TV show or two more.
Yeah, if they had stretched out, maybe give us Fantastic Four over the holiday break. Make that a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah,
but also a little bit of a stretch. Yeah. Let us wait for it. I'm okay with it.
You know why I think they put it out when they did is I think they wanted to hem in Superman, and it's.
Yeah, I don't think it needed not coming in. It's digging its own hole. Anyway,
exactly.
Moving on.
Right, let Superman be its yeah. But it's Disney.
It's fine. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see. But so we've kind of this drop. But we've got some other stuff. I guess Mortal Kombat's coming, stuff like that. I'm kind of curious to see what's going on there. You mentioned with Michael Jai White playing on that web series where he was Jack.
Yeah. And that was he was Tom O'Pennicott was Stryker. There was a lot happening in that little. Ian Anthony Dale played Scorpion. There was a lot in that random little series.
Yeah.
But it's tough because I love the first Mortal Kombat movie, with Robin Shou and all of them. That movie's great. So much fun. The reboot, now we're going to lead into the hard R. Okay. And that's a long conversation. Tabling, I'm looking forward to the new Mortal Kombat movie. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, same here.
We can discuss other Mortal Kombat stuff on the next time when we talk about that TV show they used to do. Where Kung Lao was the hero.
Oh yes, that used to be on TNT. That was great. I think that's on HBO Max. I think that's on Max. So yeah.
So anytime you want to talk about that,
all right, perfect. Well, maybe in the fall when this Mortal Kombat movie comes out, maybe
yes, we can have a whole Mortal Kombat show.
That's perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Jeanette. This was a ton of fun.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me. What a joy.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.
Direct to video.